DJI just released a new firmware update for the Action 6. Today I'm going to get into what exactly was introduced in that firmware update. This update comes not long after their 8K update, which I did a video on. I'll link it here, watch it after if you haven't already watched what was added in that major update. The update that I'm talking about today is version 01030504. We're looking at the features that was added into this update, first of which being live photos, and this was added into the photo mode. We're going to get into that shortly. And then secondly, it says that they added bug fixes within this firmware update. There's been quite a few bugs that people have been having with the Action 6. In this video today, we're going to look at a few of those bugs and see if they still exist within the camera. The first feature that I hinted at earlier that was added into this was that live photo mode. And this introduced the ability to take pictures that are in the form of video. Now this captures only JPEGs in the medium setting, which is 8 and 9 megapixels based on whether or not you're shooting 16:9 or 4:3 format. Unfortunately, raw photos aren't included in this live photo mode, so you have to keep that in mind when using this. Fortunately though, you have some pretty great film looks that are added in that you can otherwise normally use within the normal profile. On top of that, you can also use the 2x crop mode. I see this as a nice option, but this is not going to win any awards for overall sharpness when using this mode because it does have a pretty significant loss in quality in my opinion. Where I see this live photo mode being useful is when you're trying to shoot subjects that are moving, or possibly trying to create long exposure shots of something like vehicles or whatnot, where you have the camera locked down and you want some light trails in your scene. One of the best features about this live photo mode is that it has pre-capture. So notice I have this item in front of the camera. If I remove it before pressing the shutter, it will still capture this DJI case that was in front of it beforehand. Let's go review. When reviewing it, you can see it in the frame, and that was before pressing the shutter. Now here's an example of the 1 to 2x mode, just to give you a little bit better of an idea what to expect in terms of quality loss that you'll see when doing this. When looking at the medium resolution files on this, do you think 8 megapixels is enough for the 16:9 images? Please let me know in the comments. And do you think that there is quite a noticeable drop off between the 2 and 1x? Now, as I mentioned before, when you bring these live photos into your cell phone, I use an iPhone, but it'll give you a few different options. And these are some of the options you have when bringing it into iPhone. Now let's go into one of the other bugs that people have been reporting, and this is based around the fact that there are issues with the variable aperture mode when using the standard lens. The issue people were having was that the camera would not go down to f2 in low light scenarios. Personally, I've been using the macro lens for quite some time now, and this gives you the option to lock the camera at f2 or f4 without giving you the variable aperture mode setting. So this, again, is not really an issue that I've had, but let's see how well this performs going from a well-lit situation to a darkly lit scenario. Looking at these tests, it clearly seems to be working quite well, and it is doing the adjustments required when going from a well-lit scene down to a darkly lit scene. I've done tests on this in the normal and also the D-log setting, and there's really no issues at all with the variable aperture mode within this camera. A lot of people have been having issues, especially myself, when trying to record a scene with the auto exposure settings, especially past that 6400 range. I found that this caused insane amounts of flickering and also a really bizarre magenta shift where the entire screen would start to have this really bright magenta coloring, even with a locked white balance. It's daylight right now, but tonight we're going to go out and I'm going to record in normal mode, D-Log M, and then also super night mode using auto exposure settings. After these tests, we should see whether or not this is a reliable nighttime camera now or not. So now with that new firmware updated, seems like they've actually fixed that issue that I was having. When I point up towards the sky, there's no flickering at all at 12,800 max auto ISO. Now we're in super night mode. I set the camera actually to -7 auto exposure because I find that it really tries to overexpose the sky still, but we don't see that same flickering. I'll show you now what it looks like at 0 EV. This is the camera now at 0 EV, and while it looks okay when we're in a well-lit area, I find that when we point towards the clouds, it sort of makes the sky a little bit blue and green. I really don't like that effect all that much. So -7 is, I think, the sweet spot for me. Although you can end up with a bit of a dark face at times if you're in a spot that has really lousy lighting. Here's another example between 0 EV and -7. Don't you find that it looks a lot more natural in this -7 EV setting? Even though I really dislike how super night mode adds a ton of saturation on top of the already grainy image, I think it still looks a bit better. Now, I think it's extremely unlikely that we see any issues in D-Log M, but let's just see. When I point up towards the dark sky, are there any shifts? Let's flip it around. I should mention as well, I have this at -7 EV right now in order to not overexpose the sky all that much, while keeping my face, for the most part, exposed nicely. Now the camera set to 0 EV, and to me, I think it's a little bit bright, but this is how the sky looks at 0 EV. And just notice there's no flashing or crazy magenta hue shifts. Really seems like they fixed it on this firmware update. Now as I edit this footage, I'm actually noticing that the D-Log M footage often looks much worse when it comes to the pulsing and flashing. I didn't see it originally when looking at the screen because the monitor screen is so small, which is really something that I hope they update in the near future, because you don't really see these things in camera. But it really looks like the normal mode and the super night mode handled the exposure changes much better than the D-Log M does. And I was just using the regular D-Log M LUT in order to give you a better idea how it looks with a very simple couple click workflow. One of the biggest complaints people have when using this camera in photo mode is that it actually produces quite blurry images, but I think this live photo mode actually is a pretty good way to remedy that. And just in my test doing selfies of myself, moving my hand a little bit before, a little bit after using the live photo mode, it seems like it's still able to produce a pretty clear image. Here's an example now. In my last video, I touched on whether or not I think this camera is still worth buying. And I did around a 70+ day review of that camera and my overall thoughts. Check that out. The video is right here if you want to see that. Now, a bug that a lot of people have had for a long time is issues with pairing with their microphones. And unfortunately, it's quite bad now, especially for this DJI Mic Mini. My issue that I'm having right now is once I pair it and then turn off the camera, it's not reconnecting at all to the microphone. And this is really annoying because obviously you want to save battery on your camera, so you shut it off in between takes and then you go back to record a clip and it's no longer connected. This is a massive hassle and a really big inconvenience. Most people like using these cameras with these microphones based on the fact that it automatically connects and it requires very little thought in the workflow process. For example, with this Nikon Z6 III that I'm recording me now with, I clap each time twice when I want to record a video in order to sync up the tracks in post. People use these systems so they don't have to do a workflow like that, because it's just so easy to connect. But when it's not connecting easily like that, then that really makes you wonder what exactly is going on with this system. Now, if we were to talk about any bit of saving grace when it comes to the Mic Mini, it is that you can connect quite easily and pair it with the camera, but if it's not staying locked, that's a huge issue. On the other hand, when talking about the Mic 2, I always have a real hard time connecting it to the camera. It always takes me around a minute, sometimes even a minute and a half to connect the thing, and it frustrates the hell out of me. But just the fact that it is staying connected makes this a much better option at the current moment. If you've had any of these issues with the Mic 2 or even the Mic Mini, please let me know in the comments. In closing, I think that the Action 6 is a great camera for a lot of people. I would recommend for most beginners to probably just grab an Action if you want something that is lightweight, small, and durable, and can be used alongside something like an iPhone. So far, I've really liked that they've added a considerable amount of updates to the Action 6, and that's one thing you can usually expect with their Action line of cameras, is that they really prioritize adding firmware updates to this camera. While it may feel a little unfinished at launch, usually within a month or two, it's in a pretty nice working state. If you appreciate content like this, please like and subscribe, and come back for another video like this where I talk about the new features added into these cameras. I have affiliate links down in the description. Please buy through my links. It really keeps me going and supports what I do here. If you can think of anything that you would want added into this as a firmware update, please let me know down in the comments, and I'll try and potentially make a video addressing some of the things that DJI needs to add into this in the future that I've potentially missed in this video. That is all, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Bye.